Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 198 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. If you're enjoying this podcast, though, I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. If you take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me, that would be so cool. I would love to follow along on your journey as well and get to know your business a little bit more. Sometimes podcasting feels a little bit like a one-way conversation, so it would be awesome to get to know you. You can find all the show notes and any links that you might that we might mention in this podcast, of course, at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/198. But before we get started with today's guest on today's episode, how did you go with last week's episode? It turns out to be a very popular episode, talking about how to leverage your win at an award, or just leveraging being a finalist, or even just entering. Being awards season, I knew it would be timely. And if you haven't listened, then head back to episode 197 and have a bit of a listen to that after, of course, you've listened to this one. But if awards aren't part of your marketing strategy, then that's definitely something I would recommend you start implementing. So on to today's episode. What is the number one financial figure you should be watching inside your business? And I can tell you, it's not cash flow. I know, I thought it would be cash flow too, but it isn't, because my guest this week is Amanda Thompson from Endurance Financial, and she is all about having financially fit women. Amanda believes that preparation is key for long-term success in business, and she's got some great timely advice for us, considering we are just starting a brand new financial year. This interview is actually a replay of my Facebook Live I did with Amanda a few months back, but I really wanted to repurpose it here because, again, we're starting a new financial year, and this is something I've talked about on my socials a few times, so I think Amanda really takes home the point that I'm trying to make as well. She loves numbers just about as much as I love marketing, and it certainly shows through in her passion and her advice. So take a listen, and more importantly, take some action. Listen to what she's advising, and please go and do it. Take some action. Without any further ado, here's my chat with Amanda.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How you going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. I'm sitting here really quickly trying to shut down tabs so I can get better service. It keeps telling me I've got too much running. It's like, oh, what else can I turn off? Oh dear. So Amanda, for my amazing audience who might be listening to this on the podcast or listening to this as the Facebook Live or even watching the replay, tell us a little bit about who you are and about your business.
So you've heard, it's Amanda Thompson of Endurance Financial, and I am absolutely committed to helping women business owners see their true worth and be able to eventually pay themselves the salary that they're worth. So I really empower and, I suppose, provide the confidence and knowledge for you to tackle the things that may be your pain point in business. So
Right.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this for?
Oh, don't calculate my age. So I've been a financial planner for 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And my own business. I took a leap of faith in myself into my own business 5 years ago, which has been amazing and great, scary all at once. So I've been where a lot of people have been, single mum with two girls, and I took this huge leap of faith, and I'm just thriving more so emotionally and in love with my job than I've ever been. So
yeah, wow, that's so good, good, because you've got a topic that a lot of people like to avoid.
Absolutely.
So it's good to hear that you have the passion that perhaps you can pass on to us, because maybe some of us need the passion.
Yeah.
So numbers is something that small business owners don't tend to look at. They're more than happy, from my point of view, they love to hop on social media and do Instagram posts or send an email or do the fluffy sometimes things, but to actually look into their finances and see exactly where they are compared to where they think they are, which is often quite different. Why is that? Why do we want to ignore our finances when they are so important to our small business journey?
I think that fear is a major motivator. Actually, I shouldn't say I think. I know that fear is a major motivator. And what happens is that as women, and I say I took a leap of faith. It took all my courage to start my own business. So I backed myself and I was strong. And I'm just lucky that numbers is my game and my passion. But not everyone's is that. So you back yourself in whatever specialty it is, whether it be, a retail outlet or an online service provider, whatever it is that you do, and you back yourself and you know what your strengths are, but then you get really frightened about what you perceive to be your weakness, and money tends to be that. So we think that one bad money decision could cripple our business. So instead of actually taking the time to make sure we don't make bad money decisions, we sweep it under the rug and think everything will work out. But I have this saying, to do nothing is still a decision. So you are still making a decision to do nothing, and doing nothing gets you nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not that hard, and it's about trying to just work through what it is. And you talk about people having the passion. If you knew your numbers, that would actually show you where you could work on your passion or all the fluffy things that you like doing more, or how to do it. So that's where I come from. But some people don't know where to start. Some people think that you need to have an accounting degree to understand numbers, or the other part of it is people think that, if I look at my numbers, I'm not going to be sitting where I need to be because I don't have an accountant or a bookkeeper or whatever it is. So my business isn't as good as I think it is, which is not the case at all.
And it really is a fear of numbers, because if we take accounting out of the question, or out of the equation, I should say, I talk a lot inside my business about looking at your analytic data, like looking at your Facebook and Instagram insights and looking at your Google Analytics and making strategic marketing decision based on what's working, what's not working. But it's still a number. And I find that, so many people have a reaction of no, so it's a number. It's not even a financial number. It's still a number that has a fear around it. And maybe it's because they don't understand what to do with that data. And I'm assuming that it's similar with finances, is they don't know what to do with what's in front of them.
And that's exactly right. And the other part of that, and it should be this ongoing review. Every time you look at your Google analytical data, you should be looking at your cash flow or your bank balances or where you're at. But the other thing is that we get in our heads that the finances really only matter when we get a tax return done. Yeah. And so in our heads, finance is only historical figures, because we want to know what our profit is. This word gets flown around, and I could be touching a few soft spots here and being quite contentious, but this word profit that everyone says means nothing unless you know where it is. And an accountant can actually alter your return to make that profit really whatever it is. And so what happens before you get to that figure is more important, and knowing where that money is. So if your last tax return showed a profit, it could actually be like, business tax returns aren't due until now, from June last year. So, you could be looking at a figure that says that you made, let's say, $10,000. And then you've got to go, well, was $10,000 sitting in my bank account in June? What did I do with that money? So you're talking very historically and retrospectively. And that's not what we're about in business, is it? We're about in business trying to be proactive. Yes. And so that's where the money comes in. But you've got to take a whole step back You can tell I'm used to presenting live, can't you, with all the hand motions? You've got to take that step back and be able to align what it is that you want your business to achieve for you personally from a financial sense. And then it all starts to fold into one. And not enough people marry up business and personal. The only time we tend to marry it up is if that you jumped into your own business for lifestyle reasons. And so therefore you'll judge whether your business is giving you what you want if you're having those full 2 days off. Obviously I didn't do that because I took only 2 days of Easter, but
that's you are just so right on so many different levels there. Like I know when I head back to my retail days and we'd get our tax return, it would say we made a $50,000 profit or something. It's just like, where is it? I don't know where it is. Like, it's not in my bank account. Clearly it was in stock, but it's that thing of, okay, we might have made that, but that's not actually what we have for dividends at the end of the day into a partnership or, to distribute through the company. So there are so many numbers that we have, if you look at a balance sheet, if you look at a profit and loss, if you look at a forecast, there are just so many numbers. But what are the important numbers? What numbers as small business owners should we be looking at?
The number one and most important is what is going into your pocket on a regular basis. Are you paying yourself a salary? Is it a regular salary? Is it a salary that's comparable to what you should be earning? And if it isn't, then you go, okay, well, here's this figure. What else am I getting from this business financially that matches me to being employed? Because that's the very first part that will make us feel as if our businesses that we're starting are fruitful for either yourself or your family, if you have one later on. And then there's the success measures. So every single person, whether you're listening retrospectively from this live, on the live, start thinking, are you paying yourself a regular habitual salary, or are you taking things ad hoc? Do you rob Peter to pay Paul? Start the habit now. I think I do triathlons, Jen, and I say that I can align nearly everything to a triathlon. It's amazing, and it's like any fitness goal that you have, small steps in the right direction to form those healthy habits.
Yeah, but I guess the reality, Amanda, is that so many people that are probably listening that are inside this Facebook group, if they're not on with us live, who are in my other Facebook groups, who are in my community, aren't paying themselves a wage. And that's definitely a big reality. So I know what I would say to them, but from your accounting point of view, what would you say to them if they aren't paying themselves a salary at the moment?
So the very first thing that I would do is I would go backtrack and go and do some research and figure out what would you be paid if you were employed by someone else to do the job that you're doing. Now, as business owners, we're actually probably doing 3, 4, 5 jobs as well. So maybe pick one, but pick one so that you can remember what it is that you should be getting paid. Then think about all the benefits that employment gives you in terms of superannuation, annual leave, all of these things. Yeah. And then what you do is you go and review, as annoying as it is, your bank accounts and see how and where money is coming into your personal account. Not where it's going from your business account. How is it that you're getting paid? And I would dare say that look, couples, like families, they'll tend to live on one partner's wage and then the other person doesn't take this wage. I disagree with it. You should still be taking a small amount to be rewarded, and invest it or put it into superannuation depending on your age. But then go back and see where the money from your account's coming. Is it coming from the business ad hoc? And then work out, okay, well, I paid myself $20,000 last year. It just didn't come regularly, and actually say, well, now I'm going to force myself that I'm an expense of my company as well. We don't not pay our rent regularly. So why shouldn't we pay ourselves regularly?
Yeah. And I would also say that if, the landlord or the rent person comes and knocks on your door and wants an increase, you find that money. It's not like you're like, oh my gosh, I can't find that money, although sometimes perhaps you can't. But we tend to find money when we need it, except for when it comes to paying ourselves, is my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I run a course, and it's not a plug for the course. I'm not that way inclined, but we go right back. So it's about making female business owners their own CFOs. But we go and we strip it right back and we align your personal goals and your why and your values, and we take the step through the business as if you were starting a business all over again. And so I provide that knowledge. And there's some of the things that we do. Exactly what you're saying is, well, your ability to earn an income is actually your number one asset when you're a business owner. So make that asset an appreciating asset, not a depreciating asset. It's not a car. We're not a car. We get older, but we don't lose value with age.
We become much more wiser, if I know anything about growing old. That's how I feel anyway. Yeah, that's such great advice for everybody. I guess, your course would be a good thing. Like, if you have a link, feel free to send that over and or put it into the chat, because I think there's probably a lot of limiting values. There's probably some mindset issues around why we do what we do, which is way too much, I guess, to get into in one Facebook Live and one Facebook one podcast and that sort of thing. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was actual numbers. So I know you mentioned before we started this call, there is one number that we need to be keeping an eye on as small business owners. And I really wanted to delve into that a little bit more.
The bank account. What's in your bank account? In terms of that, but you need to take that step further, and just like you do with your Google Analytics and say, okay, well, that's going well, I'm going to spend money on this next month because that's working. You need to know that you've got the money to do that. So cash flow forecasts and an understanding of your cash flow, whether you're a sole trader, proprietary, limited business. If you have employees, you're going to have those quarterly superannuation payments and things like that. So if you can track and project your cash flow, what happens is if you go back and review it, you've got real-time figures that the accountant will never have. You've got real-time figures to know when there's going to be some bumps along the way and when you need to prepare. But also you'll know when there's really good times, and then you can make decisions for your business in an exciting way. As, do I spend more money on my marketing, or do I take some money out of the business and invest in my personal name? Because we don't see enough people investing outside of their business, and their business becomes their only asset. So taking money when it's there and starting to do something, that silos on the outside is just as important as well. So there's cash flow forecasting templates, scattered across the web. I tend to use the Business Victoria one, which is quite complex. So you've got to have the patience to cut everything out that doesn't work for your business. But even the most simplest ones, and the other part of that is being able to expand. Again, it's like I'm not artistic, but I am with numbers. So, it's like expanding this vision board and saying, here, splitting your income streams. So for example, me, a financial planning business, I have your legacy one-on-one financial planning type clients. I now do financial mentoring, and I have my course. So it's about stripping your revenue streams down. If you're a retail outlet, you're most probably going to have online sales thanks to COVID, even if you never did before. So if you're a retail outlet, you might have specific branches of that, but you'll have an online presence as well. So splitting those income streams. So that's the first part, because then you can say, okay, well, this one's making X amount of money. I should be putting more resources into that. That's the easy one. So you actually start to get that picture, and then costing things out, even your expenses, making them specific. And I always say that if you are a small business, a true small business, splitting those expenses to a director's expense as well. So if I'm taking drawings, I make it Amanda's wages or Amanda's drawings, whatever that is, Amanda's car, whatever it is, so that when you have a quick look at your accounts, you can go, well, I have received this benefit from the company. So I think it's about having a good picture of the figures as opposed to necessarily having to understand them, because the picture will tell 1,000 words. A picture is better than 1,000 words. It will tell you the story.
Yeah. So much of what you're saying is kind of what I talk about with marketing, but you're talking about figures. Like, I talk about content marketing, getting a calendar, putting all your content in, seeing where your spaces are, and, being able to fill those spaces, see when the busy times are and when the quiet times are. And it's the same sort of thing you're saying with finances is, for a lot of people, Easter might have been a peak. And then, especially if you're in e-commerce or a bricks and mortar, probably now you're heading into the next peak, which will be Mother's Day, but then we head into winter. So what then? So for me, it'd be like, what marketing are you going to do over that time? But you're sort of saying, okay, well, if you're looking at the cash flow, what does that mean, for your cash flow for winter? What does that look like inside your business? And how does that affect the way you can run your business if your cash flow isn't what you think it's going to be?
Yep. And the biggest thing for people is Christmas holidays. Yes, if you're a retail, you'll probably have this big upswing and depending on what type of retail Christmas. But if you're a service-based provider like you and I are, your income tends to dry up, and that's when people start to rob Peter to pay Paul. So you've got to be able to move it out or be able to project out so that you pay yourself some annual leave. You deserve leave. So your business should be able to still afford you or afford to pay you during those quiet times. You should have enough money in the bank account to be able to do that. So then you don't have to feel like you have to work over Christmas, or I'll try and take this client here or there. The other, I really try not to say mistakes, so that because we all make mistakes. So the other error that I see a lot of small business owners making is in those times of tough, that we put money into the business ourselves. So we'll top up our business account from our personal accounts, whatever that is, and then not actually accounting for that in the right way. That's essentially a loan to your business. So therefore, you should be able to repay that, and that becomes tax-free back. So the way you take money out of your business is really important as well, from what's going less into our government coffers and more into our pockets is what I like. So being able to not feel ashamed or embarrassed if you have to put money into your business, just make sure that you code it a loan so that you know that that's owner equity going in and you can pull it out whenever you want. And how you pull money out of your business is something that you should be looking at as well. If you're registered for GST, then your business is turning over a decent amount of money. I would suggest that you ask your accountant or your trusted advisor, if you're not already, what are the different ways and how's the best way to pull money out.
So you don't mean like a wage or a drawing, you mean bigger amounts?
Well, you could, but they're the options. You have wages, you can have director's drawings, and you can also have dividends, and that's patience. So when that profit's there, it's tax paid money, and you can have loan repayments. So how you pull that money, it could be a mix of everything, because people, and this is where I say that sometimes we lack the education, is that just like if you employed someone else in your business, that's an expense to the business, and the business covers that person's tax, the majority of it as well. It's the same for you. So your wage becomes an expense for the business, and you get that wage in your hand, and it's essentially tax paid money. So there is those sweet spots of what is more beneficial or not from a tax perspective. If you pull that out as drawings, it's untaxed money, but it's still taxable in your hand.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
See, now that's where I'm starting to lose you a bit. But again, that shows why it's important to get the education. Yeah. So, and I'm really, as you can tell, I'm passionate about this, and I could talk for ages, but I'm passionate about educating, not telling. trying to let people think for themselves what works for their specific situation, because there isn't a one fit all scenario really.
Yeah. I remember that one of the biggest lessons that I learned in my older retail days, as far as cash flow went, is being able to see when you need more money in the bank. So for us being a retail business, August and September were our biggest buying months for Christmas, but our lowest income months because they were coming off the back of winter. So we were able to see that in September, we were actually going to need to have a bit of a top up of some money and maybe apply for an overdraft. So we applied in May when we knew our income was high. So when they were looking at us as a business, we knew that was a bit like, there's no use going to the bank when there's no money in the bank and asking for more money. So that was one of my biggest lessons, was cash flow, was to see when the bump was coming and being able to do something about it when you actually looked good to a financial institution to perhaps lend that money to you.
And it's exactly right. So, and it's no different to, for example, Christmas marketing, isn't it? You don't do your Christmas marketing on the 20th of December unless it's last minute buys.
Yes.
You do your Christmas marketing in November. So you do plan ahead. And that's what these cash flow forecasts said, that they're projections. As I said, they're proactive, not retrospective.
Yeah.
It's time to be proactive in your businesses and your business dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. So what holds women back? I know my group has a mixture of both men and women, so perhaps I shouldn't put women on the end of that sentence, but what is holding people back from taking that next step to knowing their numbers, making their numbers part of their strategic business decisions?
Yeah. So generally speaking, again, there are some well-known differences in the genders. Mm-hmm. There really are, and it's been documented. Women in particular, especially when we go into our own business, feel as if we're our worst enemy. First of all, we are our worst enemy. We put so much pressure on ourselves to succeed. Okay. And we often lack that confidence in areas other than what our specialty is. So if you said to me, Amanda, you're so good at financial planning, why is your marketing no good? And I'd be like, because that's not what I do. And if I delve into marketing and I fail at it, then I'm a failure. Mm-hmm. So we tend not to be able to silo things like men generally can, and I hope there's a lot of wives there going, but we do that in businesses because often we're mums. Yeah, so often we will take that jump because we want lifestyle, but it doesn't mean that we're not trying to do both things. So we put this pressure on ourselves of what success looks like. So if we delve into these finances and it doesn't show us success, or we're scared that it doesn't show success, then we're not a business owner. If we don't know everything, if we're not the CFO, if we're not the marketing extraordinaire, if I'm not, the strategist, then my business isn't successful. So it's really our mindset. And I think that, I've been, as I said, you've started to calculate my age. I've been doing this for 20 years, and 10 of those were spent in a male-dominated environment, both as clients and as colleagues. And so I do base knowledge on fact on what I've come across. And so we are still in this shift of generations as well. And you talked briefly about money mindset, and a part of the thing that I do is take you back to your childhood or your younger years and think, how was money treated when you were young? How, did your mum talk about it? Did your dad talk about it? Who was in charge of the money, or who brought in the money? So where's your mindset come from? Both triumphs and tragedies. And when did you learn the value of money? And so when you take a look back into your own past, more often than not with women, I see that it hasn't followed through. So that the financial literacy has not followed through from mother to daughter, for example. And I've got two girls. They're very lucky their mother's a financial planner, because they are going into the big wide world with that financial literacy. I can tell you that, where that stops at my generation for my girls.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the sad things about, money mindset and the things that we are told and experience in our childhood, how much that affects us. And again, I know that isn't what this chat's necessarily about, but when I look at mine, and I think it's so sad that I've found this out at 47, 45, whatever, because my kids are already grown up. So I don't have time to change that, or that it's already ingrained the things that I may or may not have done wrong. So I think this should be something that children are taught in like year 11 or year 10 when they have the maturity and the literacy to sort of break that. Because now for me, my children have already, as much as I hope that they don't have too much, but they're going to have some, because I can see what's affected me in my childhood I've carried over. And I do feel a little bit sad by that, because, it's almost too late. It needs to be taught earlier. So
that is a whole nother conversation, and watch this space, because I'm going on retreat to finish a book on exactly that. Exactly that. So in a tap and go society, how are our children learning the value of money and the concept of going out into the world on their own? So I mean, I could talk about that in a really grumpy way for a long time. But I think that's the thing, is that that's what's holding us back. And what else is holding us back is time. We think we don't have time to go and learn something. We see finances as a skill to learn. You know what? You can have all the accountants, financial planners, bookkeepers in the world, but at the end of the day, I can guarantee you, if you have an understanding of your numbers, then your business will thrive. Even more so if it is now, but also your measures of success and your own personal endorphins from that will, increase. There's the fitness analogy again. See, positive energy breeds positive energy.
Yeah, brilliant. That's such a lovely way to wind up, I think, as well on that. But is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on? Did you have anything else in your notes that is super important to talk about today?
No, the only thing I did want to offer is that I'm in the Facebook group. I'm in your Facebook group, so reach out to me on DM if you want. Anyone I speak to, because I do a lot of these, I am always willing to have a 30-minute discovery session, because sometimes you'll be like, what did you mean by that? Or and sometimes you might just need a little bit of a pick-me-up to say you're doing things the right way. But please start paying yourself a salary. I couldn't care if it was $50 a week. Start small, like we would teach our kids. Like you would give your kids an allowance. I hope you're still giving yourself one. That's how I'd like to finish, is please, for me, pay yourself a salary.
I like that, and starting small, because some people like, well, if I worked full time for somebody else, I'd be getting in $800-900 a week, but I can't afford that. So I love that you've left them with that small, just something. I think that's such an important message. So other than my gorgeous Facebook group, where else can people connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram and as Endurance Financial, and on the website, endurancefinancial.com.au.
Yeah, see, I should have known you were an athlete from the name of your business, shouldn't I? That went straight over the top of my head. So there you go.
My mum named it. So who better to know me better than my mother when I went out on my own? She picked up the Endurance Financial. If you can see the picture in the background, my kids bought that for me. So that's somewhere from the Tour de France. So
nice.
That's a retro picture they just happened to find that said, that'd be really good for your office, Mum.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Amanda, for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I'm sure that people will have some questions for you. If you're watching on the replay, please use #replay, and you can just use the @ symbol and tag Amanda with any questions you might have. Otherwise, go and check out in the website and go and check you out on Instagram. But I thank you so much for all your wisdom and just your nudges and encouragement to keep going. This small business thing is really tough, and it's always great to have a community of people that have your back and to help you with the skills that perhaps we aren't so good at. So very thankful for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right, take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Now you've listened, I know that you know now what I mean by taking action, right? If you're not paying yourself something in your business, then please go and do that. Set up a payment from your business account to your account and just get it done. It doesn't matter how big or how small this is. Just do it. Of course, any advice given on this podcast and from Amanda as well is general. So always check with your financial advisor or your accountant before making any business decisions. But honestly, if you have an accountant who says you shouldn't be paying yourself something in your business in some form or some way, get a new accountant. I just don't get why someone wouldn't advise that. Small business owners make so much sacrifice. There needs to be some sort of financial reward for us. Anyway, let's continue this conversation in the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. If you're not a member, then chuff over there and join. I have some great guests coming up for the rest of the year, and I can't wait to share those with you. But that is all for another episode of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. I, of course, will be back next week for episode 199. 200 is so close. I think I better start thinking about what I'm going to do to celebrate that. Wow. Okay. Anyway, in the meantime, let's hang out on social and get social on social. You'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn under Jen Donovan. But whatever you do, remember my small business peep. As my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.